Hi, everybody. This is Steve Peha again. I wanted to take a few moments here to narrate the slide deck that we went over during our time together. So welcome to Build a Better Writer's Workshop. There are three things that we talked about, three hard things. And these are the things that I've struggled with the most over the last 20 years. I still struggle with them today. They don't go away. They're also the things that teachers tell me they struggle with the most. I think they're just part of the nature of the work that we do in writing. The first one is the kids don't want to write. Many kids don't feel they are good writers, and writing is very personal. They don't want to share their writing. They're just reticent about putting their ideas on paper. Not surprisingly, adults have exactly the same challenge. So anytime I'm working with kids and they don't want to write, I share with them some of my own fears about writing, and I try to make the room as safe and trusting place as I can. The second issue is that kids don't finish their work. I don't know how many times, dozens or hundreds or even thousands of times, I've worked with kids who get off to a good start, they keep going, but at some point they just run out of gas. They don't finish their work on time, they don't turn anything in, what they turn in is incomplete. And to me, this is the most concerning thing for two reasons. One, I want kids to learn to finish what they start. I think that's a really important value. But instructionally, if kids don't finish work, if they don't go through every step of the writing process, there are whole bunches of writing that they don't learn. In particular, they don't learn much about revision, editing, and publishing, which are usually the things we worry the most about. The third thing we're going to talk about today is that kids don't confer well. Just like they don't want to write, just like they don't want to finish, they don't want to talk about their writing either. This is hard for us too, because we know that they're nervous and we don't often know what to say to them either. So I'll give you some thoughts on that today. I think conferring is one of the hardest things for us as teachers, but really it just takes a lot of practice and some faith in ourselves and our kids. So here's a kid that I see a lot, and she just doesn't want to write. And I often think sometimes when they're looking at me like this that they're kind of challenging me. Go ahead, make me, I dare you. I don't think they're really saying that, but anyway, it's more dramatic. So kids don't want to write, and the main issue that we have to deal with in writing is engagement or motivation. Fortunately, there's some really good science on this now that tells us exactly what all human beings need in order to motivate themselves. We need autonomy, mastery, and purpose. In particularly the autonomy to be inspired. We're inspired by ourselves, by being able to do things ourselves. And you can see this in little babies, of course, and it's just as true as we grow up. The next thing is mastery. We can be inspired to start something with some degree of autonomy, but in order to be engaged and to stay engaged and to really work hard, we need to have a sense of moving toward mastery. We need to have a feeling that the more we work, the better we're going to be. And finally, purpose. If we don't have a deep sense of purpose about our work, and especially our writing, we don't really know how to make it matter to people, which is to say, we often don't put in much voice, we don't add enough detail, we don't have strong endings, we just don't really know why we're doing what we're doing. So autonomy, mastery, and purpose, those are the keys to helping kids get over the idea that they don't want to write. So here are some happy kids jumping in the air, and they are amped up on writing. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So here is a nice autonomous girl. She is feeling on her own and happy about it. And here's the way I translate autonomy into practical things for the classroom. Autonomy really breaks down into four areas. It's my choice of tools, my choice of tasks, my choice of technique, and my choice of time. Now, if we can't give kids complete free choice in all of these areas, we wouldn't have school, basically. But what I try to look at is, with every kid and with every type of writing that I do with them, how much choice can I give them in each of these areas, knowing that the more choice I can responsibly give them will improve their sense of autonomy and their sense of being inspired to write. Can I give them 2 or 3 or 4 different strategies or tools that they can use to solve a particular writing problem? Can I give them some flexibility in the task? I know we need to have them write certain kinds of writing, but there are lots of things that we can do to give kids a little choice. So usually, if I give kids choice of topic, I'll take choice of form. If I need kids to produce a certain form, I'll give them choice of topic. If I have a particular goal in mind for kids, I'll give them choice of form and topic, but I'll tell them that the task is to produce great leads, or the task is to work on showing detail. No matter what I want the kids to learn, I can always give them some choice of task. Technique is more personal. Right off the bat, most of our kids don't have any technique, and it's largely because our tradition of writing in the United States is not a tradition of teaching kids the techniques of writing. I can help you a lot with that. I have lots of techniques. I'm a very technique-focused teacher. So what I often get into with a situation is kids who start to want choices of the techniques they use. They want to choose a different pre-writing strategy than I might suggest for a given type of writing. They want to choose from 10 or 20 different leads that we've discussed. They want to be able to come and get feedback from their audience before they know what details to add. Finally, this is probably the hardest one for us, but it's probably the most important one for the kids. Can we give kids some choice of time? Can we give them a little more time, or in some cases it's helpful to give them a little less time? The times when I want to be flexible about time have to do with a question I ask myself all the time, which is, will my giving them this choice help them be a better writer? Some kids get so close to breakthroughs, and then the deadline shows up and we collect their papers. What I started doing a few years ago was asking myself, what if I told this kid that they're really close to a breakthrough and give them another day, or over the weekend, or 30 more minutes in class? And what I found was that that excited kids, because it helped them get over a particular issue, produce something great, and most importantly, it helped them move toward mastery. This is a girl who is just out of high school, and she really is working toward mastery in her life. She's in Nashville right now, living the dream of being a music star. And she started very late in life. I don't think she started writing songs until her junior or senior year of high school. And then she left for Nashville, where she has a producer and a recording contract, and it's all really, really exciting. I'm really happy for her and her parents. What she and I have talked about is sort of what keeps her plugging away. She's not famous, she doesn't make a lot of money, doesn't really make any money yet. So she has to have something that keeps her going all the time to do the really hard work that is becoming a successful professional musician. And what she talks about to me a lot is the opportunity she has, the chance she has to get really, really good. She improves a lot every day, really, every month, every recording I hear from her is better than the last. And that's what gets her excited. She knows she isn't there yet, but she feels like she will be if she has the time and the opportunity to get really, really good. It's a big motivator for her, and it's a motivator for all kids. So here's the last part of the motivation puzzle. It's purpose. Lots of ways to talk about purpose in writing, but I use the simplest way that I know, and the one that I think most of us as adults are familiar with. Purpose is my way of connecting with something larger than myself. And for kids in school, connecting with something larger usually means connecting with their friends, connecting with their peers, connecting socially with other people around them. That's largely how kids connect, especially as they get up into the middle and high school years. Their friends become even more important. And so cultivating a really good audience in the classroom has been the biggest help for me in this. And teaching kids how to publish outside of the classroom so they're connecting with larger and larger audiences really helps them understand why they're doing what they're doing. And in particular, it helps them with detail and with endings. Okay, here's another little guy not having a great time today. His problem is he just doesn't want to finish the work. Is it time to go home yet? He always asks at 9:30, 9:45, 10 a.m., 10:15. This kid just doesn't want to finish work. And that's understandable with writing to a certain extent, because I don't sometimes want to finish what I'm doing. I haven't gotten off to a good start. I've hit a hard spot. I think I finish it, but it isn't really finished, and it's a little frustrating. So the fact that kids don't want to finish their writing is really more about writing than it is about kids. And again, it's something that we have trouble with too as adults. So we can relate to that and develop some empathy for kids here. Nonetheless, kids have to finish. That's what really makes the difference. So what I do is I try to start small with kids so that they can finish big. And the key for me in that has always been assigning more short pieces. There's nothing I can't teach a kid in 400 words that I can teach them in 2,000 words. A 2,000 word piece is just 400 word pieces. We write everything in sections. Most of the sections we're aware of are paragraphs, but 2 or 3 or 4 paragraphs makes a legitimate section of the piece. And if I start small with a piece that might just be 200, 250 words, 300, 350, maybe only as large as 400, kids can finish more. Revising takes less time, editing takes less time, publishing takes less time. The whole process moves along faster. Kids get more opportunities. Instead of writing 4 or 5 or 6 pieces during the year, so many of which they won't do very well on, I can have them do 20 or 30 pieces in a year. So if they don't do well on 5 or 6 of them, they'll have a good chance to do well on 20 or 25 more. Start small, finish big. This has been the most important change I've made in my teaching of writing over the years. It's really made a difference to me and to the kids. So here are some small kids starting small, but really the other component of this is to start easy and have kids work hard. That is to say, I know that the easiest kind of writing for kids to do is the easiest kind of writing for all of us. It's writing about their life, particularly the things that happen to them and the way they feel about them. I know this kind of writing is not, I won't say it's frowned upon, but it's certainly being de-emphasized in our schools right now. And I think that's a problem. I'm not saying that kids should write about their feelings all day. I'm not sure that they should write personal narratives every moment of their lives. That's not what I'm talking about. But I am talking about a really logical thing we all know about learning, which is that when we're not very good at something, we have to start out easy. I always want kids working hard. I always want them to put in a big effort on everything that they do. But if they're still struggling with getting started, that effort goes for naught. So I want to give them easy things to do right off the bat. And again, that's usually short personal experience stories, things that they know well and feel like sharing. Now here's a young kid. This is Sam Stern. He is actually a very famous chef. And take a look at this turkey. Sam knows how to cook a turkey. Now, I'm sure he hasn't always known how to cook a turkey, but he's gotten used to a whole bunch of ways the turkey should look, and probably uses cooking to temperature. He's worked with different ingredients. The bottom line is that he knows when he's done cooking a good turkey. And what people are good at when they're good at getting things done is simply knowing what done means. In classes, in classrooms, and schools, and the whole academic tradition, done is associated with do. Something's done when you have to turn it in. And very few of us start early. We almost always start as late as we can and cram what we can do into the few minutes or hours we put in, and then we just turn it in on the due date. That's not done, in my opinion, because that's not when a piece of writing is done. It's just when the clock runs out. So let's try it a different way and teach kids a definition of what done means. I break it up into 3 parts, beginning, middle, and end, and give kids 3 things to think about. Just simple criteria. This is not a rubric in any real sense. It's just things that I want them to check off, and I want them to be able to tell me that they're pretty sure they have them. So after reading the beginning, I want kids to know that readers have a sense of what the piece is about. I want them to know that their readers want to read more, and that their readers think the piece will be worth reading. I emphasize their readers here because there's almost no way for us as writers to know whether we're reaching our readers unless we ask them. Here again is the importance of feedback, sharing in the classroom. Kids can talk to me all the time, and I can certainly help them and do, but I think it's more important for them to hear from their peers and to write to their peers and to get a sense of what's missing, what's good, what could be better. And this definition of done approach is a way of structuring that discussion. Essentially, this becomes how kids know when they're finished, but it also becomes a good protocol for organizing or sharing. So that's the beginning. That's when we know our beginning is done. Now the middle, it's a little trickier, but not something we can't figure out. After reading the middle, readers should have enough details to understand the one most important thing you want them to know. That's the main idea, the one most important thing. In a research paper, it's the thesis. Sometimes we call it the message. I just call it the one most important thing. And it always has to be a complete sentence. That's just the rule for complete ideas and complete thoughts in writing. So I want that one most important sentence at a minimum. I want kids to know what that is and to be able to put it in their piece, or to leave enough details behind that it can be inferred. The next part is that readers have to have enough information to answer all their important questions. When we write something, we almost immediately generate questions in our readers' minds. Readers will have all kinds of questions. I'm not talking about answering every reader's every question. I'm talking about answering the important questions. And I'll have a lot of talk with kids all through the year about what an important question is. Gradually they'll get better at that. We'll also talk a lot about it when we talk about the writing we read, asking about what questions we have and how and whether the writer is answering them. This last one is probably the toughest, but it's also the most important. You want your readers to think that you included the right amount of information, not too little, not too much. This is another reason why I start kids writing short. I don't want them to add too much information. I don't want them to get used to padding their writing to make a minimum page count. I actually want to give them maximums. I want to say you can't write more than this, and I want to move that maximum down as low as is reasonably possible. That helps kids know and think about how to include the right amount of information. Now we get to the ending. Endings are hard, but they get a lot easier when we tell kids how to know when we've got a good one. So after reading the end, do your readers understand why the piece was written? Do they feel that the piece is finished, that it gives them something to think about? It's that sense of, I don't know, when you go to a movie and you're still talking about it, walking through the lobby, out of the door, and halfway down the street back to your car. If you're still talking about the ending of a movie 5 minutes after the movie's over, you've got something good to think about, and that's a darn good movie, or at least it's a darn good ending. And that's exactly the same way things work in writing. Think about the endings of great books and articles and stories you've read. You can still remember them today. And finally, will readers feel they had a valuable experience? Readers put forth a lot of time and effort to read writers' work. I know that we put in time and effort to read kids' work. And we want to know we're having a valuable experience for the time and effort we put in. I often say to kids, look, I really don't want to read bad work. I don't want to read incomplete work. I don't want to read anything that's not your best work. When I go to read your work, I'm putting in my best teaching time. I'm putting in my best abilities to assess and to help you become a better writer. So do your best and give me writing that is a valuable experience for me. I tell them that a valuable experience for a teacher has a lot of dimensions. I want to feel that reading their work was valuable, but sometimes even if their work is not as good as we'd like it to be, it's very valuable for me to know that they've tried as hard as they can and to understand what challenges they have and what I need to teach them next. So there's lots of ways I can express the value I get out of reading kids' work. Again, it's the value that their peers find in it that will motivate them the most to write the best kind of piece. So this is the definition of done. And what's really nice about this, I can use this all year for all the writing that we do. I can also modify this just slightly for all the work that we do. And what's been really interesting for me is that I've gotten to a point where if I can define what done is in terms of completeness and quality, I don't have to use rubrics anymore, and kids can assess their own work. We can also identify instruction for every kid in each of these areas. So if you think about it, what I've done is reduce all of writing and writing assessment to 9 things. We just keep working on them all the time. And I teach strategies, multiple strategies for each one. And we even sometimes keep lists of how many strategies we have to make sure we're doing the 9 things we know we need to do. It's really changed a lot. Definition of done is something that has just that, along with assigning more short pieces and starting kids off easy. These things have dramatically improved writing instruction for me, and I know they've improved the experience kids have with me too. So here we come with the last challenging issue, and it may be the biggest challenge. These kids don't confer well. They don't know how to, for one thing. They haven't been taught, and we do have to do a lot of teaching to help them know how to be good conferring partners. I like this kid's look on his face. He's pointing his finger at the adult here and says, "Dude, I am so not conferencing with you." I don't think kids are that defiant, but sometimes they're that funny, being a little sarcastic. But that's kind of how it feels inside, I think. I don't think they want to conference with us very much, certainly after kindergarten or first grade. And we've got to, again, find some empathy, understand how hard it is for us to confer with others about our own writing, what our fears are, and create a safe and trusting relationship with kids so that conferring really is just like a regular conversation. That's all it really is. So here are the 3 keys to better conferences. And these have helped me a lot. I've been doing this for 25 years. I never get perfect at conferences. I never master conferencing because it depends on the kids I'm working with all the time and the writing we're doing. But here are 3 things that have made a huge difference in my ability to get better at it and for kids to accept the process of me conferring with them. One is to define a conference procedure and use it consistently. I like a sign up. I like kids to sign up for a conference. I also usually require them to tell me what they want the conference about. This is really nice. If I get 15 kids signed up for conferences and they've written by their name what they want a conference about, if I see that 4 or 5 kids want help with the same thing, I can call them together, bring them to a table or something, and I can do the same conference with all of them. What that does is it allows me to conference more efficiently and more effectively, but it also gives me a little more time. Instead of 1 or 2 minutes per kid, if I have 5 kids, I can get 5 to 10 minutes to talk about them, and I've achieved the same level of efficiency, but I've given kids so much more information. So I love to define a conference procedure, and I really want kids to use it. Most important things for me are to use a sign up for kids to tell me when they sign up, wherever they sign up, usually on the whiteboard, what they want to conference on. The third is when I go over to see them for the conference, I need them to be ready for the conference. They can't be forgetting what they wanted the conference on, or fumbling to find their work, or if they're working on a computer. Sometimes kids literally will have erased what they wanted help with, and then we're just wasting time. So they have to be ready for the conference. And finally, there has to be an implicit understanding that whatever we conference about, kids are going to take action on. I've talked to kids a lot about that, but it's really important. For me, the key to making conferences short and making kids happy and successful is to focus on only one thing. It doesn't mean I can't focus on more than one instance of one thing. Sometimes we'll be having trouble with details in a particular place, and then I'll look down the piece a little farther and find out, well, there are detail problems all through the piece. So we might focus on one instance of something and then have kids work on all the other instances. But it's really important to focus the conference on one thing. It doesn't mean that you can't tuck something in at the end, some small thing, but the conference really should be devoted to just one thing. And then here's something that I couldn't believe how simple this was until I saw someone else do it. And then it was just like, oh, that makes all the difference. For about 10 years, I struggled with a thing I now think of as silly, but I would have a conference with kids. It would be fairly fast, but it would go well. I'd come back to them half an hour later or the next day or 2 days, and the kid couldn't remember what the conference was. They couldn't remember if they did anything about it. They couldn't remember what we conferenced on, and I couldn't remember either. So I walked into a classroom one day where I was doing some work with a teacher, and I was conferencing with his kids, and I noticed they had all these little notes written in the white margin at the top of their paper, and then they had check marks done if they were done, and they were unchecked if they weren't. And so I asked the kids I was working with, I said, what do you do? Why do you do that? And they go, Mr. Hall makes us do it. So I said, Mr. Hall, why do kids have these little checklists at the top of their papers? And he says, well, we have a conference, and whatever we conference on and agree to work on, we just write it down. Just take a note, write it down, and then when the kids do it, they check it off, and then when I come back, I know that they've done it. And as they go through the whole writing process, and we conference many times, or they get feedback from the class, they write those things down too, and then we both have a record of all the things they've had to work on to make a piece effective. And then it dawned on me, if you have that record on all the pieces kids do, it really ends up being a list of the mini lessons that you have to teach. So strangely enough, this last one helps kids, it helps me, but it helps me in an unexpected way. If I look at 10 pieces of finished writing and I look across the things that we've talked about in conference, I know that those are exactly the things I need to teach more of. Those are the things that kids are working on. Those are the things they're getting better at. Those are the things I want the kids to master, that they have a chance to master. Those are the things that are on our minds together as we work. So I'm going to go through something kind of quickly now. I'm going to apply all these ideas to some extent by taking you through a set of strategies that produce a finished piece. I used to use individual strategies all the time with kids, and I think most of us do, but I realized that strategy sets were really what we needed to get finished work. So I now put things together into sets, and this is one set here for a very simple kind of piece, but I can show you lots of sets for all the pieces that you have. Just let me know what you're writing, and I'll chain a bunch of strategies together. And so I'm very interested now in moving from individual strategies to strategy sets. And I'm going to run through this fairly quick, but as Yogi Berra here would say, you can observe a lot just by watching. So I'm going to let kids pick a topic here. I want them to write any kind of form they want. It'll probably be a narrative, but it can also be an informational piece. Sometimes these are persuasive. I want them to pick a topic that they know a lot about. I want them to pick a topic they have strong feelings about. I want them to pick a topic that's a big part of their life. And so I use this typical, unusual T chart. Typical things in life on the left side, unusual things on the right. This is my list. The first time we write, I ask everybody to pick something from the unusual side so we get to know something unusual about each other. Here's a very interesting kid, and that's what I think about. I want to think about what's the most interesting thing about myself that I can share with kids. What's the most interesting thing kids can share? For me, kids love hearing about when I hurt myself. I don't think there's anything mean about it. I think they just like the comedy of it. Last year I broke my foot letting our dogs outside for the night, so that's what I'm going to write about here. I don't know who this little guy is, but I see him a lot on the internet, so I thought I'd put him in the slideshow. Here's a pre-write I like: action, feelings, setting. It's very good for capturing a scene. It's also good as a comprehension strategy for noting the important details in the scene. Here's the action for me. I was letting the dogs outside before bed. I fell on the stairs and broke my foot. At first, my feeling was a sense of relief that I wasn't badly injured. I was thinking, lucky I didn't hit my head or hurt my back. Then, in that strange way, I felt an extraordinary amount of pain. So I was at my house, obviously, started in the bedroom, then I walked out to the hallway and then down the stairs. And the dogs get so excited for this last little adventure they go on late at night. And they bark a lot, which wakes my wife and I up again. And here's a cute kid. I love these pictures of kids. I use them a lot. I have hundreds of them. I get them all for free from a site that allows you to use them for free. It's called unsplash.com. Wonderful site. It is a site where professional photographers put up professional photography that they would like you to have and use any way you like. Once again, that's unsplash.com. So here I'm just doing a first draft off my action, feeling, setting. Each night, right before bed, I have to let our dogs out. A few months ago, I fell on the stairs. They went by me and broke my foot. Oops, I got a problem there already. Did I break my foot or did the dogs break my foot? I'll have to figure that out. I missed a stair and came crashing down on my right foot. For a moment, I felt lucky, no injuries, I thought, and I remembered that cracking sound I'd heard as I went down, and it really was that awful cracking sound. And now I really need to do a little more drafting, but I got to fix a couple problems too. The dogs did not break my foot, for the record. I broke my foot by trying not to step on them. So here's an interesting thing. I want kids to revise a lot more. And I've just discovered that the best way to get them to do that is to call almost everything they do revising. After they've done a little bit of drafting, they are revising. Mostly they're adding. But sometimes they're changing and fixing, and that's what I'm doing here in addition to adding. So I think it is legitimate to call this a revision, and the part that I've added and changed here I've put in orange. Each night, right before bed, I have to let our dogs, Mookie and Marvin, outside. They won't let me get to sleep if I don't. A few months ago, their excitement turned into a little problem. I got up out of bed and headed for the stairs. One of them ran between my legs and knocked me off balance. I missed a stair. With all my weight, I came crashing down on my right foot. I tumbled down the landing. For a moment, I felt lucky. No injuries, I thought. Then I remembered that cracking sound in my foot. So after we've gotten to that point, kids have drafted a little bit and we've talked about it, maybe shared a little bit. They have something. But it usually isn't very polished, and so I'll take them through a really standard set of revisions here that I call high-value revisions. If I'm only going to get kids to do a few revisions, I want them to get good at the ones that make the most difference in their pieces and the most difference to them as writers. So the first thing I work on with kids is revising beginnings, and this is pretty much how I do it. I have 30, 40, 50 model beginnings. They all have different names and they all achieve different things. But I'll usually start out with 5. And these are the 5 easiest. You can begin with a question. You can begin with a sound. You can begin with the setting. You can begin with action. You can begin with feelings. And now you know again why I like the action, feeling, setting so much. Because there are 3 leads built right into it, if they like. And kids know the setting lead. It's the fairy tale lead. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, in a castle hidden in the woods, there lived a blank, 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 and so on and so on. That's just starting with the setting. All right, so here we are now. I've revised my beginning. This is a little more advanced here. Sometimes I like to get just one step ahead of the kids. So in this case, while I'm asking them to try one revision, beginning strategy, I'm actually going to do what most really good writers do, which is use a combination of different leads here to create more than just a lead sentence, to create a lead paragraph. This one is sound, action, question. And just like I was talking about moving away from single strategies to strategy sets, I try to move away from single leads to lead sets. I don't call them that, I just call them lead paragraphs. My wife's a professional journalist. She says there's a difference between the lead and what is called the top of a story. The lead is often just that first sentence, but the top of a story is really how we get people into the story. That might be 1 or 2 paragraphs. And combining these different lead strategies is a great way to get really good, strong openings that are more than just a single sentence. Crack! I knew I had just broken my foot. I didn't want to believe it, but the pain made a convincing argument. How, I wondered, had the simplest of my nighttime duties turned into a colossal disaster? So that's a little over the top, might not be the best writing in the world, but I'm starting to bring some voice into it. I'm starting to bring some technique into it. And really, it is starting to be a lot more interesting than just me telling a story. So now, once we do beginnings, I like to go right to endings. It's probably just a function of the way I write. I write so much better when I know what I'm starting with and I know where I'm going to end in the middle. Just can't get out of hand. I don't fall off topic or include too much extraneous detail. I teach endings exactly the same way as beginnings. There don't seem to be as many different endings as there are different beginnings. I have about 20. I'll start kids out with 3 or 4. And again, I'm going to start them out with the easiest ones. Ending with a feeling, summing up something with how you feel about it. Always works as an ending. I'm not sure why, but it just always does. You can end with a question, just like you can start with a question. And if you start with a question and end with a question, you've achieved probably the most advanced kind of beginning and ending. I just call it a wraparound. Professional writers call the technique a bookending, and it's that sense that wonderful sense we have that we've come all the way back home again when we finish a piece, because it starts one way and ends in a similar way. Ending with a realization is very common in these narratives. Effectively, this makes it a memoir when a kid can look back over an experience and realize something, realize that they see the world differently or that they've learned something. This is also the thing we teach them to look for in reading. And I'd just like to mention that every writing strategy that we go through here is also a reading comprehension strategy. Everything we write has to be read. People need to comprehend what we write, so it must be comprehensible. That's what the writing strategies do for us. But then on the other end, whether readers know these strategies or not, they are comprehending them as feelings, questions, realizations, something to think about for the future. So every writing strategy is a reading strategy. And that's the basis of my best work and the most broad-ranging set of training I do. It's called integrated literacy, where I talk about how to teach reading and writing at the same time. And now we're going to look at my revised ending. And again, I've done a little combination here, just 2 kinds of things. Limping into the doctor's office the next morning, I felt strangely special. I had an odd story to tell about an unusual event. The orthopedist took one look at my foot and said, "Do you have dogs?" I told her I did. "More than half of these injuries involve pets," she said matter-of-factly. "I guess I wasn't so special after all. I was just another clumsy pet owner with a swollen, throbbing foot." So I think that's an okay ending. At least it sounds like an ending and it makes sense. It's a nice meaty paragraph. It uses some of the things that were in my beginning. Now for the mystery of revising for details. Details are hard to deal with for kids. They don't often know what details they need, and a lot of kids don't even know what a detail is. So I give them a definition. I tell them that a detail is the answer to a good question their readers might have. So if I'm talking about that crucial moment where I do fall over and break my ankle, that's where I want to put the most detail. I want to put more detail, the more important a part of something is. Just logical. That's what people want to know the most about. So here's the big moment. One of my dogs knocks me off balance while I'm on the stairs. And kids will always want to know, how did that happen? Are your dogs mean? Did they try to do it, Mr. Peha? No. They just shot past me on the stairs because they're so excited. And one of them ran between my legs. The other one ran on the outside. So our stairway is not any wider than anybody else's. And I got two 60-pound dogs there. Excuse me, gotta clear my throat a bit. And I just didn't want to step on them, so I stepped on myself. It wasn't my intention, but in trying to miss them, I missed the stair below. So now, what I really have to do is just take those details, and all I have to do is put them together, and they make a paragraph. I love the idea of detail strategy. It can be used anywhere. The pattern of an idea with supporting details is the fundamental pattern of all human communication in Western culture, certainly, but now all around the world. Unfortunately, in writing, it makes a perfect paragraph. So I don't actually teach paragraphing anymore. I teach kids strategies that produce paragraphs, and it just works a lot better for all of us. I can also get kids paragraphing as early as kindergarten, just by teaching them a strategy like idea details. As they shot past me in a mad dash, one of them ran between my legs while the other raced by on the outside. I didn't want to step on them, so I decided to step on myself. Notice that I had 5 details there, I think, but I didn't need to turn them into 5 sentences. Kids will often do that, 1 sentence per detail when they're starting out, and that's not a problem. I just ask that they run together fluently and that they get the details in the right order. That's usually what we have to work on for a while, especially if I'm working with elementary schoolers. So again, I'm adding material, but really I'm revising too. So all along the way here, I've been teaching kids revision, and sometimes I don't have to say revising. I just have to say, let's do this next. But after a while, I'll point out how good they are at revising, and then it makes it harder for them to tell me they can't do it. Oh no, what is he going to do now? Here's I guess you'd call it an editing pass, or copy editing is what we'd call it in the professional world of writing. This is probably the most helpful thing kids can learn how to do for themselves. It's something we all need to do for ourselves. It's the notion of revising our writing to remove unnecessary words. There's kind of a rule of thumb that my wife, the journalist, taught me, and she says, anything we write can be reduced by 10%. And she says, anything we write that's any good and of any length, 300 or 400 words, even in this case, I think this is 250, we can reduce by 20% if we really work hard. So I've got about 250 words here, and I'm going to try to knock off, what's a fifth of that? About 50. I'm trying to get it down below 200. So I won't go through the whole process, but this is how much I could take out. And this doesn't take a lot of skill. What it takes is a lot of listening and thinking. So this is a task that gets kids into close reading really well. And again, we can see that any writing activity I want them to do becomes a reading activity too. So my first line there, I almost cut in half. It read originally crack. I knew I had just broken my foot, and now it just says crack. I broke my foot. This is a particular type of thing that we all do, and it's easy to spot and take out. I call it over-verbing. You'll notice that I have 3 verbs in the one sentence. Knew, had, is that auxiliary, or helping verb, and broke. And we generally want to have at least one verb in a sentence, but we don't often need more than one. So whenever I catch myself having more than one verb in a sentence, I at least look and see if I can take one out. Here I was able to take two out. Looking farther down, I've got another thing here that's very common. Listen to this. This is how it was originally. How, I wondered, had, I've got a problem there. Got a typo, got to fix later. This is also what happens when we remove unnecessary words. We remove words that are actually wrong. So I'll take care of that the next time. How, I wondered, had the simplest of my nighttime duties turned into a colossal disaster. Now, do I really need wondered? How, I wondered, had a simple, I think that's called a non-restrictive clause or something like that. That's a little too technical for me and the kids, so I just usually call it a middle part. Sometimes you need a middle part because it refers back to the first part. That's called an appositive. And it sometimes is important and useful. But this one doesn't perform any value, any function, or I'm the one that's wondering. And so I can just say, how had the simple, this is why and the are there. I forgot to change that. I want it to read, how had a simple nighttime duty turned into a disaster? Do I really need colossal? We don't need adjectives nearly as much as we think we do. In fact, too many big adjectives like that causes a credibility problem with the readers. If I say that everything's big, huge, and wonderful, amazing, colossal, and spectacular, it's sort of like the boy who cried wolf. You'll actually get a sense that I'm stretching the truth, and it will diminish the use of my adjectives. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just taking out unnecessary words, but you'll notice the unnecessary words fall into 2 or 3 categories. Verbs I don't need, and verbs phrases. Details I don't need because largely they're modifying other details. They're adjectives or adverbs. Look at the first sentence of the last paragraph. I got up out of bed. That's 2 prepositions in a row, up and out. And I know it's a nice phrase, but getting out of bed seems to be roughly the same here as getting up out of bed, so why not take out up? As they ran past me in a mad dash. That's how they ran, so that's an adverbial phrase. So notice that I'm giving kids the 3 or 4 or 5 most common categories of language that they can remove, but I'm also teaching grammar at the same time. And that's how I like to teach grammar. I just like to work it in as a useful tool for becoming a better writer. That's really the purpose of grammar. So here I'm going to finish. That was only half of my piece. Here's the other half, and it was 244 words is the total. And after removing everything I could, I got it down to 198. So I think I picked up, 46 words out of 244. So roughly 20%, maybe 19%. So I really did meet the goal here. Removing unnecessary words is great. If this was the only revision I found, on the revision desert island, and I can only take one revision, I probably would choose this one because it has so much value for kids as writers, but it also improves their close reading. It also improves their grammar. It improves the fluency of their writing and therefore improves the fluency of their reading. And it actually is the best single preparation for writing in college and in the workplace because brevity, concision, accuracy, these are the things that are most valued in the adult world. So new. You remember Frank Sinatra and I can't remember who that is there, but she's famous. He's singing that song, So Sue Me, what I Love You. It's Nathan Detroit there talking to Adelaide about what should he do. He can't get his act together, so he says, So nu. And that's an old Yiddish phrase that means, so what do we do now? Let's get on with it. So here's what we need to do to help kids get better at the 3 toughest things about writing. in a workshop environment. We need to activate kids' autonomy, and that means giving them some choices, a small range of choices, not free choice, at least not until they've demonstrated the ability and responsibility to make good choices. Let's give them time for mastery. Let's give kids a little more time. Let's do everything we can to give kids enough time to really get good at something. Let's leverage the power of purpose. That often comes out of sharing, posting kids' work. Sometimes now we have kids do blogging, all kinds of things. But let's let them leverage the power of purpose. Let's have them write about real things that really matter, and let's have them connect that writing with people. That's where the purpose of writing is. Let's publish more short pieces. It's going to make our lives better. It's going to make kids' lives better. And it's going to make everybody learn more. Let's use a definition of done. Let's reframe the whole idea of being finished from being due to being done, really done. And if you'll notice, implied in the definition of done is the notion of doing something well. So it's really the definition of done well. I just don't tell that to kids right away. Let's stay quality focused. Over the last 10 or 20 years with all this testing and these standards, we've become far too curriculum focused. We'd rather follow the script in our standards and in our pacing charts and whatever without really much regard for what different kids in our classrooms need. What they need to do is have experience after experience after experience of producing high quality writing. That means different kids have to do different kinds of writing because their levels of ability are not the same. What I want for kids more than anything with all parts of their life, but especially in all parts of school, is to have the experience of working toward quality over and over and over. Because even if you don't make it, you at least know you're trying to produce something good. And that in itself is reason enough to do it. Finally, in addition to staying quality focused with our writing, let's stay reader focused. I don't see a lot of kids who are aware that anyone's going to read their piece except me. And I don't even read their pieces anymore because they share them so much when we conference. I don't take pieces home to read. I don't read them much when kids aren't around. I will take them and save them if they're really, really good. I can use them as models at a later time. It's the reader who really matters here. And I like to tell the kids that I'm not really their reader. I'm really their publisher. I think that's more my function as a teacher in a writer's workshop, certainly. Their readers are all around them. The readers are who they're writing to. That's usually the kids in the class first, and maybe other kids in the school, or a particular group in the community. I have kids do a lot of writing, sending letters to the editor of the local newspaper, things like that, to give them broader publishing opportunities. So let's activate Here we go. Let's activate autonomy. Let's make time for mastery. Let's leverage the power of purpose. Let's publish more short pieces. Let's use a definition of done. Stay quality focused and stay reader focused.